This Saturday, the 29th of June 2013, the day when teachers hit back at the government over threats to withhold their salaries, saying any attempts to do so would signal the end to any hopes of dialogue. Also tonight, 2 children were hospitalized in Gatundu after their own mother assaulted them, leaving them with fractured hands and wounds all over their bodies. Good evening and welcome to KTN Saturday Night Live. I am Yvonne Okwara, sitting in for Linda Ogutu. Let's take a look at the highlights tonight.
The real strike commences on Monday, 1st of July.
No salary, no dialogues. Teachers respond to government threat.
Hizi vidole ndo imegongwa na nyundo. Nakelea mikono kwa ambao wanagonga. Tukilia anatuambia atatuchoma mdomo.
Bruised and battered by their mom, all in the name of discipline.
This man, William Barker, one man to beat. And Barker for the try line into the 22. Can he get there? Reaches out.
Through to the World Cup quarter-finals, Kenya's Shujaa stormed past Samoa.
I could not imagine that on such a nice Friday, I had been to several parts of the constituency. It was a beautiful day that it could end so horribly.
And on Survivor tonight, KTN's Catherine Amondo visits the politician who survived a grenade attack. Good evening once again. Now, fresh attacks have occurred in Mandera and Bungoma counties, leaving 3 people dead. In Mandera, 2 people were killed during interclan clashes in Shirshir area, while in Bungoma, 1 person was hacked to death and his wife injured by unknown thugs. Najma Ismail has the details.
The attack in Mandera took place in Shirshir area, which is a Degodia settlement. Several houses were burnt and looted by the attackers. This is the 3rd attack since a peace agreement between the Degodia and the Gare was signed. Leaders from the 2 clans are said to be on a tour of Ramu and Takaba to preach peace and had agreed that any side that violates the brokered peace deal was to pay 10 million shillings. But this did not deter the attackers today. Elsewhere in Bungoma, a gang of more than 5 invaded the home of George Masinde, a former clerk at the Bungoma County Council, hacked him to death and seriously injured his wife. Eyewitnesses say the gang stormed into the home of the deceased just as they were preparing to have dinner at around 8 p.m. and locked the children in the kitchen before descending on the deceased with machetes and other crude weapons.
Mama anasema walikuwa watu 5. Mmoja alishughulika na kupika mama anyamaza asipike nduru. 4 walienda straight kukabiliana na mzee na kuua.
Bungoma County Governor Kenneth Lusaka visited the area and condemned the incident.
Tuwe macho sana kwa wageni. Hata hapa mama vile ametueleza, kuna mtu alikuja akajifanya kwamba anataka msaada. Hatusemi ni yeye, lakini alitoka mapema na kutoroka. Najua uchunguzi itafanywa.
Ni jukumu la serikali kuweza kuimarisha usalama na kuhakikisha usalama wenu ninyi wakazi wa Nalondo na pia mali yenu.
This latest incident occurred just barely a month after at least 10 people were killed by unknown gangs in the area. Najma Ismail, KTN.
The Kenya National Union of Teachers says it will not engage with the government on negotiations of any nature should teachers not be paid their June salaries as threatened by Education Cabinet Secretary. The union says the allowances awarded to teachers in the 1997 deal are not negotiable since they were completed under a solid collective bargaining agreement and must be fully implemented by June the 30th. Patrick Amima has the latest developments on the teachers' strike.
KMT has accused the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Professor Jacob Kaimenyi, of attempting to usurp the powers of the Teacher Service Commission when he issued a veiled threat to freeze June salaries over the ongoing teachers' strike.
When a strike has been declared illegal, what is the best thing to do? We don't pay you.
If the teachers do not earn
their June salaries by 1st of July 2013, KNUT will not attend to any negotiations. The real strike commences on Monday, 1st of July.
The union says teachers are on strike because the government has refused to implement the 1997 deal on house allowance, medical allowance and harmonized commuter allowances. KNUT maintains that the 1997 deal is not negotiable since it was a legally binding collective bargaining agreement. The union says it acted first to secure the deal after the Salaries and Remuneration Commission directed unions and employers to conclude the current collective bargaining agreements by June 30th to allow room for new ones with a 4-year review cycle.
We have stood true to our beliefs that it is our benefits that it shall never be taken away by anybody. He will never ever see us in class as long as our issues are not addressed. We are not fighting a laptop project. We only spotted that in that bag there was some money that we could get and benefit.
KNUT says it has tabled a negotiable memorandum to the Salaries Commission on new teachers' terms and conditions of service, which contains proposals for a 300% salary increment. Also included is a responsibility allowance for principals, deputies, senior teachers and heads of departments in secondary schools at 50%, 40% and 30% of their basic salaries respectively, plus leave allowance payable to all teachers. KNUT says Cabinet Secretary for Education is a stranger to the allowances dispute and wants the Cabinet Secretary for Labour to take up the matter. Curiously, Kazungu Kambi is on record saying the teachers' strike is illegal.
We have fulfilled our part of bargain. The teachers are changing the rules.
I've seen him trying to amplify, trying to accept to be misguided by irrelevant individuals, and is going to wreck the labor relations in the public service in this country.
But even as the teachers talked tough, pleas for dialogue from the government continue to resonate.
We are waiting for our teachers to come to the negotiating table so that we can agree, they can go back to class, our kids can go back to school, and we can move on as a country.
You cannot address the issues of teachers through the media. No, as a leader, you must offer leadership.
For now, KNUT and the government are talking at each other, with each dictating terms for negotiations, with no clear sign of truce anytime soon. Reporting for KTN, I'm Patrick Amimo.
US President Barack Obama says his plans to visit Kenya are still on course and there is no cause for alarm over the itinerary of his current African tour that left out Nairobi. Speaking at a question and answer session at the University of Johannesburg that saw him engage with youth from South Africa, Kenya, Uganda and Nigeria via satellite, Obama said that with the ICC cloud hanging over Kenya, this was not the right time to visit. The Kenyan youth also asked him to comment on the recent shift in trade ties where Kenya and other African countries are turning to the east. Here is what he had to say.
That I wasn't able to visit Kenya this time is I've been to Kenya multiple times and there hadn't been a sustained visit by me in West Africa. And then South Africa, given the importance of the work that we're doing together. Tanzania is a country I hadn't visited before, so I was trying to spread the wealth a little bit in terms of my visit. But what's also true, I won't deny, is that Kenya just had an election. I was very proud to see the restraint in which the election was held. We did not see a repeat of the violence that we saw in the last election. But with the new administration that's also having to manage some of the international issues around the ICC, I did not think it was the optimal time for me to visit. But as I said, I've got 3.5 years, so if in 3 years and 7 months I'm not in Kenya, then you can fault me for not following through on my promise. You know, you raised the issue of whether our attitudes towards Kenya changed because of Kenya's orientation towards trade and commerce with the East. And this was asked of me before. It's a general question that I get during this visit. People saying, well, you know, China's here a lot, and, you know, is this what's motivating America to want to be more involved? And I want to make 2 points. First of all, our commitment to Africa is based on our belief in Africa's promise and Africa's future, and we want to be part of that future. Second of all, I think everybody should be involved in Africa. I want China, and I want India, and I want Brazil, and I want Singapore, and well, everybody come on down to Africa, because 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world are right here in Africa.
And indeed, many Kenyans will be holding him to that promise. 3 years and 7 months. We'll be waiting to see what happens with that one. KTN's very own Asha Mulu is in Johannesburg, South Africa, following that trip by the U.S. President Barack Obama. Asha, perhaps you can tell us what the mood is like following that live town hall meeting this afternoon. Asha?
Yeah, thanks, Yvonne. Just like how you've heard President Barack Obama talking about the Kenya situation and why he's keeping Kenya in his African trip, here in South Africa, South Africans have been following up on the Obama trip as well as Mandela's health. We are outside the Medic Clinic Heart Hospital here in Pretoria, where a lot of South Africans are continuing with their vigil, songs and prayers outside this hospital for their icon Nelson Mandela, who has been ailing from acute lung infection. And of course, the family gave the last update yesterday saying that the former statesman is in stable but critical condition, I beg your pardon. Well, we've been talking to a lot of South Africans about what they feel about this situation. The whole media camping outside the hospital is taking precedence, but what we're observing is that they're very welcoming to African media such as KTN. Been speaking to some of them, and we went down to Soweto. Our observation right from the time we got to the airport in Johannesburg is that South Africa has really embraced their icon, really embraced their history, their apartheid history, and they're really showing the world that they know what South Africa is all about. They know what Nelson Mandela is all about. We took a visit to Soweto, Vilakazi Street, where Nelson Mandela's house, where he lived right before he was sent to prison, and after that, and we took a tour into the house, found out it's now been turned into a mini museum, and South Africans are really proud about their history and the legacy that Nelson Mandela has left for them. Well, I want to take you through a tour personally that we went through earlier on today. Just take a watch and maybe learn something, 1 or 2 about the history here in South Africa.
11 February 1990. Mandela was released from prison. After prison, Mandela stayed in this house for 11 days. Because he had no privacy, people could not let him rest. The media from all over the world was here. People from all angles will come here, sing revolutionary songs inside and outside the yard. So after 11 days, he moved to a bigger secured house where Winnie is now, not far from here. These are Mandela's quotations, which he quoted in Winnie's letter, which he quoted in a speech he wrote to the students of 1976. That speech was smuggled from prison. It came with Meg Maharaj, Mandela's colleague. It was read by Mandela's daughter in the cemetery when he went to bury some of the students who were shot by the police. That tree at the corner is a special tree to the family because all the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren who were born here, their umbilical cords are buried under that tree. That's our African tradition. The blackness on the wall is when the house was petrol-bombed twice. Some of the patched bullet holes and the bricks that became loose. Visible bullet holes under the door. Okay, Mandela stayed in this house for 15 years before prison. This is his last picture before prison. First picture after prison. We had a wall here. This wall was built by Winnie. to partition or to divide the living room from the kitchen and to protect the family from police attacks. And those are one of the dustbin lists that we used during the 1976 Soweto uprisings to shield bullets from the police. That's a replica of the old stoves which were used then because the houses did not have electricity. This shot was taken 2009. Mandela, Winnie, the daughters, the three granddaughters, the great-granddaughter who was killed in a car accident when South Africa hosted the Soccer World Cup. This was the main bedroom, or the parents' bedroom as we used to call it. That's Winnie in the middle, the daughters on the sides. This bed, it's not Winnie's, it's not Mandela's. It belonged to one of these girls when they were young. It was brought here 2009 after the house was restored back to originality, whilst they are waiting for Mandela's original replica. If it comes, this one will go back to Winnie's house. The only remaining thing, well, it's the cover that will remain on the bed. That's a special blanket, traditional from Kumu. The state of Michigan, it's when the Michigan legislature asked George W. Bush Sr. to apologize to Mandela on behalf of the CIA for helping the apartheid government to capture Mandela, but Bush did not apologize. This was the children's bedroom. Mandela was given this belt as a present by Sugar Ray Leonard because Mandela was a boxer himself before he went to prison. These are his military boots which he wore in different countries. Ethiopia, Tanzania. These were Winnie's military boots she wore in Namibia. Winnie in a military gear. This is the emblem of the ANC military wing. Contours is the spear of the nation in English. This portrait here, it was drawn by a lady from Kenya, Nairobi, 1990, when Mandela was released. Those loosening chains from prison, the shackles, the footprints, symbolize the slow walk to freedom. The two Nobel Peace Prize winners who come from the same street, Bishop Desmond Tutu and Madiba. Fidel Castro, when he came to South Africa 1994, when Mandela was sworn as the president of the country, 1994. Well, I think it's great, and it opened most of black people's minds after this. Moreover, after visiting these heritage sites, the Mandela Museum at Peterson.
We all know that he's a pivotal person in this time that we live in, and he's, as we said, sacrificed a lot, and we know, and it makes us feel proud.
He is the one who paved the way for our generation today, so we are able to know each other better, unlike in the olden days where our parents were separated from white people, where they were brutalized, where they were killed, so he means a lot to us.
That's KTN's Asha Mulu with a very informative tour, taking a look at the life and history of Nelson Mandela, and she will continue to bring us updates on his health from Johannesburg. We want to take a short break right now on KTN Saturday Night Live. We have lots more coming up for you after the break. Stay with us.